There's really a direct connection between testosterone and your estrogen, specifically estradiol. This is called an aromatase pathway. It is promoted by sugar and insulin, okay? So the more sugar you eat, the more your testosterone converts into that estradiol. So the more sugar you eat, the more your hormones are out of balance, and basically the more you turn into a woman.
Welcome to the Men Over Mountain Project. I'm your host, Dalton Yateman, and here we band together to overcome life's most complicated mountains. Whether you are a father, husband, entrepreneur, or influencer, we find ways to take action and become a man over our mountains. Welcome to the Men Over Mountain Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest who I had the honor of meeting at the Freeman Forge event here recently, and he has blown my mind. He is a wealth of knowledge, and I just so happen to be a wealth of curiosity. So with no time left to spare, let's welcome Dr. Shane Huyser.
Honored to be here. Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to just be able to chat and bring some knowledge to people. That's just what I love to do. So
awesome, man. Well, I have the utmost respect for what you do as a chiropractor and your practice. I definitely believe that, God has made a small pocket of doctors that respect the body's processes and actually look into the causes of why people are having the ailments and the issues that they are having in life. And without me giving too much information, would you mind walking us through kind of what your practice looks like?
Yeah, definitely. So I run a very family-friendly oriented practice. Me and my wife started it. We're both chiropractors. We actually met at school, had the opportunity to open up our practice right out of school, and we've been just flying ever since. So we see full families, and that's something that we wanted. And as we were going through school, we just knew we wanted to take care of everybody. Anybody that walked into our office, we wanted to be able to help in some way or another. And I think it's really interesting because first and foremost, we're chiropractors, but when a lot of people think about a chiropractor, they just think, okay, you just adjust the spine, right? Oh, my back hurts, or oh, my neck hurts, or I have a headache, right? But if you actually go back to the root of chiropractic started as full-blown doctors. Like, I have my doctorate. I take the same board exams. I take the same tests as a medical doctor. I just learned to adjust over giving medications and prescribing medications. And so it's really interesting because it goes back to the root of that chiropractic. If you go back, they did medical testing, they did blood work, they took you off your medication. And the biggest thing, like you were even saying, is we just help you get to the root cause of the different things that are going on, whatever that may be. And so I'm trying to dig deeper rather than just kind of put a big Band-Aid on it with whatever medication, this or that, a surgery. We're trying to just get to the root cause of that. So our practice, we see a little bit of everybody. My wife is very passionate about her women, more specifically her pregnant women, moms, also the kids as well. We see tons of kids in our office. We started doing what we call family night. So literally mom, dad, and all the kids come in, and it is just a hoot for like the last hour of the day. There's kids running around everywhere, our puppies there. So we have a lot of fun with that. And then over time, it's kind of transformed into, I've really started seeing a lot of the husbands and the men, and that's really became my passion. And I'll be completely honest, as a guy, sometimes we're stubborn, right? So it's hard to get the guys in sometimes. And so I've seen everybody, I can help everybody, but my passion has really been more geared towards the men's side of it and trying to get men to take control of their health. Just because sometimes we're taught to just keep pushing forward and just kind of power through, and we're going to be fine and it needs to get done. But in the end, like, you can't burn the candle at both ends forever. So try to teach you how to take care of your body, take care of yourself. And most importantly, as a guy, you got to take care of your testosterone. So that's really where I like to hone in at. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, I think that most men don't really go to the doctor unless they need somebody to put a limb back on.
exactly.
And and honestly, we all know that that with most men as well, there's that trust factor and that kind of pride level where you're like, oh, I'm good. I'll throw some dirt on it. I'm good. And
Yep.
even, I can't take a day off because I've got people relying on me. And, there's so many
Yep.
reasons. And that ultimately is kind of one of those oxygen mask situations with your family
Mhm.
and your community, even, or your sphere of influence, is where you run yourself so ragged that you're actually of no benefit to anybody, even though you have that pressure and that burden on you
Mhm.
to provide and to be efficient and everything. You end up running yourself into the dirt. And so it's very
Yep.
important for us to kind of know where we stand in our own health. With that being said, was there a kind of a health journey that you went through,
Yeah.
or what is the maybe the one change that you made in your life that absolutely just
Mhm.
changed everything for you?
Yeah. I've had through my whole life, it's kind of been a journey for me. I was born with scoliosis, so I have a good curve to my back and have a couple different signs and of just some different things going on. I mean, overall, I'd say I was born healthy, but I just had a couple things that I think over time they started to add up. I know one thing as I was growing up, one of my signs is that like I would get jaundice really easily. My eyes would start to get yellow, even my fingernails would start to get yellow through middle school, through high school, to the point where like my friends were like, "Hey, I can notice this," and they'd point something out, and then that kept happening, and I went into the doctor and basically got no answer. And then I think these things started to catch up with me over time because I was the typical kid. I was eating pizza rolls and and all in toaster strudels and all these different things, and everything started to add up over time. And once I got to chiropractic school, I remember adding the stress of kind of chiropractic school and everything like that. It really started to get to me, and my biggest thing was my gut started to affect me. I started to have like not consistent bowel movements, and I never know if I was going to have to run to the bathroom or if I wasn't going to the bathroom for a couple of days. And I remember one point in time I looked, and the back of my mouth was just like almost white. And I ended up going to at school, we have a really good kind of program, and I ended up going to like the nurse, and I remember she was saying, "Oh, well, because I had looked it up and I know enough at that point. It's like, okay, I think I have yeast, kind of like thrush, and they said thrush only
Mm,
happens in babies, and that was the answer I got. And they said they basically just kind of blew it off, and
mm,
I was like, okay, at that point, I need to take it into my own hands. I've gone a couple times. I've got no answers throughout my lifetime. I was born with something not quite right, not like completely debilitating, but um, all these things just started to kind of add up over time. So that's when I actually started to find the Wellness Way. So the Wellness Way is a network of chiropractic clinics, and we all practice very similarly. And I remember seeing this guy when I went to school, and he just kind of blew me away with this talk. And I was like, okay, I gotta. I gotta follow this guy. I gotta learn more about it. And he's really getting. His name's Dr. Patrick Flynn. He's my mentor. So he ended up getting back to like the root of that chiropractic, doing medical testing, doing those different things. So for me, I ended up having a big imbalance in my gut. I had a big yeast overgrowth in my gut, and that started to cause a lot of different digestive issues. It started coming up into the back of my throat. At that point, I had brain fog. I had just like inability to focus. Like my vision even started to get a little bit worse. And I had to get stronger prescriptions for my glasses.
wow.
Um, and then so for me, I was like, okay, I need to get some testing. I need to figure out what's going on because I started taking supplements. I started doing different things and nothing really got better. So I was just guessing, right? So that's where
Mhm.
that testing can really come in hand. I ended up doing a stool test and I ended up testing my food allergies right when I first started. So learned I had a lot of imbalances. I found that yeast in there, figured out how I can start to turn that around, how I can start to rebuild my gut. What I also found out is that I had essentially what's called leaky gut. So all that yeast, all that inflammation there ended up causing leak, but I ended up having 33 food allergies. And so there was all these different foods that I figured out that I needed to avoid. And some of them were like the healthiest of foods. It was kale and beets and pineapple and pistachios. And if I went to a nutritionist, it would have been like, hey, you're doing great. Keep eating your beet and kale salad, right? But
Mhm.
those things weren't right for me in that time. So it was a combination of getting that quality testing to figure out, okay, what's feeling my body that's good, what's harming my body. how can I start to, I like to use analogies. Like I had all this going on. That was a fire, right? How can I start to put that fire out? But the question is also, why the fire start in the first place, right? So those different tests could start to tell me what was fueling that fire. How could I put it out, and how could I start to rebuild so that fire doesn't come back?
If you want to send me a picture of your before and now picture when you was in
Yep,
college and dealing with that, and then what you look like now, you look
I can do
rejuvenated.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome.
I mean, I look back at those pictures and I can't believe it. Like my cheeks were all swollen and I'm down about 45 pounds from where I
Hmm.
was. And that's the thing is like I was doing everything right, right? I was eating well, I was going to the gym a lot, I was strong, I was lifting, I was doing cardio, I was doing all this stuff, but my health kept getting a little bit worse and a little bit worse. And I
Hmm.
remember even through all of that, I kept gaining a little bit of weight. And I was like, at first I was like, okay, I'm putting on some more muscle, but after a while, I was like, yeah, it's not just muscle that's getting added on. And I know I had at the heaviest, I was like 208 pounds. But now today I'm down, I don't really weigh myself that often. I'm right around 170, but I'm just as strong, lift just as heavy. So I know a lot of that was just inflammation and ended up being basically I started to accumulate a lot of fat just because of all the imbalances kind of going on in my body. So
Absolutely, it's
yeah,
probably
I can
under a
send
lot
you
of
before.
stress.
Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of stress too. So all of that again, just kind of adding up over time, and just ended up causing a lot of those imbalances.
Well, I tell a lot of people that too is that like animals, they have teeth and claws that
Yeah,
help protect them from being eaten, and plants have chemicals in most cases. Now, there's the Venus flytrap; it's got some teeth and it's got some different types of chemicals, but that's a whole other story. I'm pretty sure that came from another planet. But um, with that being said, like polyphenols, for example, we look at whenever we eat beans. I mean, we even made a song about it, about how it makes you gassy when you eat beans, right?
hmm
That is not a normal thing. That is our body actually messaging us and talking back to us saying, listen, I'm having some gut issues now because of what you've eaten. And this is a message to you to say, hey, you probably shouldn't eat this again. Or maybe for me, it's like with lemonade or red onions, for example. I have a bit of an intolerance for that. So I'll get a headache whenever I eat
yep.
those things. That's your body telling you that you should not be eating these things. And so one of the things that I picked up from your speech at the Freeman Forge was that there are so many things that we are exposed to that are causing us to have health issues that we don't even think about. With that being said, I would like to discuss how our five senses play a role in our health and how our body responds to those exposures. What is the oddest story that you have about somebody being exposed to something that they did not even know about, and how did you fix that problem?
Once that comes to mind is I see a lot of Amish in my area. There's a lot of Amish and Mennonite, and it's interesting because they're really good at not living in the modern society, so they don't have a lot of exposures. So with them, it's usually a lot easier to figure out what is this thing that's kind of contributing to your health concerns and different things like that. I remember there was a couple that I just we couldn't figure out. We did all the testing, we did all the stuff, they followed everything, we just couldn't figure out. One of the things that we found was it's actually what's essentially called stray voltage. Okay. So the energy coming from the power lines that were running outside their house. Okay. So this couple had just gotten married and then they had moved into their relatives and got to a different part of the house. And that part of the house was closer to the power lines. So as people who aren't around electronics and all those different things as much, now they're sleeping in a room that was closer to the power lines and they were affected by it. And it's interesting because even last week we had a guy come in and talk about EMFs in our office, and like he had little meters and all kind of stuff, and he said, oh yeah, like power lines are one of the biggest things. They put off so much energy. Okay, we can't see it, we can't feel it, we can't, well, you can actually hear it if you're close enough to
Mhm.
a big power line, but like we don't necessarily have that as one of our senses to recognize. And the second we kind of figured that out, we're like, okay, what are all these different things? And we figured that out, and they actually end up moving in temporarily with the other relatives. Health concerns went away. All their stuff
Wow.
went away. So it's just they had so little exposure to electronics and electricity and all these different things and that energy being put off, that when they changed locations and moved closer to a high source of energy like that, their health started showing it. And it was just like, okay, trying to chip away. Is it the food? Is it this? Is it that? Like, is it parasites? And we just kept chipping away, and we're like, what? Like, what is the missing piece to that puzzle? End up being the energy literally coming from the power lines that were outside their house. So
That blows me away. I would have never have guessed that. And I can guarantee you that most pharmaceutical doctors would not have either. They would
yep.
have been dumbfounded that those patients would have been spending thousands of dollars to try to continue to get tests done and
Yep.
even being hit with more x-rays to figure out what was going on. I'm certain, or MRIs and things like that. And that just blows my mind. That's something that that's actually a topic that I have not dived into yet, was the
Yeah.
EMF stuff. It's next
Ooh.
on my list. I see people
You'll
with
get
these
something though.
little medallions now that kind of help
Yep.
equalize EMFs and stuff.
Yep.
Um, Look at you. That is
Yep.
awesome.
There you go. Yep.
But
Oh, you'll go down some rabbit holes with that. We'll talk about it sometime.
yeah, yeah, that sounds awesome. So I was not expecting the electronics to be the issue for this thing. So my
Yeah.
next thing was like, okay, let's use that sense. We'll start with that
Okay.
sense because I was
Yep.
expecting something different. But I guess let's start with sight, for example.
Okay. Yep.
What are some things that we absorb through our
Yeah.
vision that can cause us a lot of trouble? I'll give a couple examples of just some things that I know about, and that's with blue light and circadian rhythm. Um,
Yep.
how could that affect us in a negative way and
Yep.
positive way?
Yeah. I mean, I'm wearing blue light glasses right now, so I am a little bit blind, so they have a little prescription to them, but they're blue light blocking. So with that, the light from our screens, whether it be our phone, whether it be our computer, whether it be our TV, they emit different kinds of light, and our body naturally tries to sync with kind of Earth. Okay. So we get a lot of that light from the sun, but as the sun's starting to go down, our body can actually recognize that. And now when our body senses like the sun is starting to set, our hormones, our brain, our body starts to shift. Our body starts to produce more melatonin. It starts to calm down. Our stress hormones like cortisol, even testosterone, even some of those things start to shift and lower, so our body can calm down and go to sleep. When you are exposed to artificial light coming from your phone screen, computer screen, something like that, it can almost mimic that sunlight. So now your brain, your body starts to get confused. And is it daytime? Is it nighttime? And different things.
Mhm.
And now you might not have that melatonin production. You might not have that hormone shift. You might have increases in cortisol spikes at nighttime. And so now it can start to affect your sleep. It can start to affect your circadian rhythm. Depending, some people are actually really sensitive, so it can start to like cause headaches and different things like that. So that light can really just play into that hormonal pattern, your circadian rhythm, and a lot of things like that. So either there's a lot of settings on your phone, on your computer that you can do. If you're using Apple products, it's called night shift mode. I can't remember what it's called on. I think it's blue light if you're using like an Android. But you can start to shift that. You want to shift more towards like an orangey kind of soft color. That's really why I'm a little bit more in a less aggressive light here. But one of the things you can really do too is one of the things I try to do almost every morning and every night is I will go out, I will literally stare into the sun. I'll close my eyes and I'll let the sun beat on my face. First thing when that sun's starting to come up, you can feel that nice warmth, but now it's actually your body can recognize that. So now you can start to have hormonal shifts both
Mhm.
morning and night. So it can start to wake you up, give you more energy, start your day. Also, same thing at nighttime. So it's starting to shift that circadian rhythm just because you're starting to see it. I'm not saying don't stare into the sun with your eyes open, but eyes closed, you can start to look at it and your body can start to recognize those changes.
I think Dr. Andy Huberman talks about a lot of the staring at the horizon,
Yeah.
like primarily in the morning. So you don't have to stare
Yeah.
directly into the sun, just
Yep.
where the light is coming up at. And well, during the winter months, I love
Yep.
to build a fire, and I will sit there and I will stare into the fire, and that
Infrared.
red light, exactly, it actually helps the induction of melatonin and helps you to get into a sleep state. And so that's one way that I try to, especially if I'm like up all night and I'm doing some work or like, really deep into something. I love to kind of cap the night off with like a 30-minute stare at the fire, put my phone down, turn my phone off, and just let my body get back into its hormonal and chemical balance.
100%. Another way to do that too is if you don't have access to a fire or something like that, or you miss the sunset, you
Mhm.
can actually go on ground. So put your toes in the grass. So take your socks off, because just like that infrared, the ground, the grass can actually absorb that infrared. And now when you
Wow.
go out there and you touch the ground, you can absorb it up out of the ground. So that's just another way that if you don't have that fire, if you don't have those couple things that you can do, that's something simple. Just try to go find some grass and just stick your toes in the grass.
Oh, I'm
So,
going to be adding that this year
yep,
for sure.
yep.
That
And
is
it
awesome,
just,
man.
I do that every morning. I go out barefoot, go out and do that with my pup, and then it's getting colder here. Woke up and it
Mhm.
was 34 degrees this morning, so it's starting to get chilly. But even in the wintertime, everybody's like, most people won't do it, but I even go out in the snow. Same thing, okay? Because it's even harder, especially I'm in the Midwest. It's harder here. We don't get direct sunlight for like 5, 6 months out of the year. So it can
Wow.
really start affecting stuff. And like that's why seasonal depression, different things like that comes from that vitamin D production, even some of those hormone imbalances. So it's really important, especially up by me, to make sure you're doing as many things as you can to try to keep that in rhythm. And so one of the things I do is I even go out and ground in the snow every morning. And cold exposure is a whole different story. That's also really good for you, but kind of killing a couple birds with one stone there. So do what you
Oh,
can.
oh, we're going to get there for sure.
Okay,
Uh,
perfect.
but so would you say that a lot of these things, a lot of these issues that we have are kind of like a snowball effect, for example? So maybe you live in a place that doesn't have much sunlight, or maybe it's cold, so you stay inside in the warmth. And so you don't absorb the light, and now you don't have very good rest, and now your cortisol levels are high. And I'm not sure where you stand on adrenal fatigue, and now you have depression and gut issues and all of these
Yep.
other things, whereas all you have to do is try to make that first adaptation and see where
Yep.
your life shifts from there.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Once you start one thing, it leads into the next. And I always say, like, you got to break that cycle at some point. Cause, like you said,
Mhm.
you don't go and do those things. You don't go to the gym. You don't go outside. You don't expose yourself to the red light. Now you're stuck inside. Now you're probably not stretching. Now your energy levels are lower. So now you don't feel like going and doing those things. And it's just a
Mhm.
snowball kind of effect. And so you got to break that cycle at some point and go and do it. The issue is you start to dig yourself into a hole. It takes you a while to get back out of it. It takes a lot of work, and you might not see that reward right away. But we're
That's right.
taught today to have instant gratification, right? Well,
Mhm.
if I go and stretch, right, I want to feel better right afterwards. Or if I go to
Mhm.
the gym, like I want huge muscles, like doesn't work that way, right?
Right.
So it's these things, it's just those consistent habits. But we're just taught today that, like, okay, if you go and do something, I want instant results from it. That's what the
Right.
medical field does, right? I take a
It's the
medication, I
shortcut
feel
system.
better. Yep,
That's right.
exactly.
And I
Nothing.
call the pharmaceutical industry the pharma uh, pseudo industry because it's just false. It's like
Yep.
it's cheat codes, it's bypassing things. I mean, it's
Hmm.
it's it's the cousin that said he could fix something, but comes in and kind of rigs it up. You know what I mean? And it works for
Yep.
a minute, but then you're gonna have to call the real doctors later. You know.
Hmm. Yep.
So I know I have a little bit of disdain to doctors, but I've got some stories of my own.
Yep.
Um,
There's a time and
but
a place for everything, but
absolutely, absolutely.
medicine medications don't make you healthy. That's why I always ask them, like, well, how many medication does it take to make you healthy? And everybody's like, okay, yep, okay. They
Exactly.
don't have an answer for that, right? So,
Most of my clients too, they ask about these certain supplements and things, and they want to jump on the supplement train like from the get-go. And I was like, I tell you what, let's focus on one thing. Let's do one step at a time because I want you
Yep.
to, I don't just want to turn these uh, habits or these tasks that I'm giving you to implement into your life for a
Mhm.
season. I don't want that. I wanted it to become a habit. I want it to become a lifestyle. And the only way that we can do that is look at it one step at a time. Because if you do it
Yep.
all at once, if by the way, if you're listening to this podcast and you say, okay, I'm a guy that doesn't get any sun, I'm a guy that has this issue, this issue, this issue, this issue, start with one thing, right? And then get consistent
100%.
with that. That way, okay, and it kind of treat yourself like a mad scientist, you
Yep.
know, make these adjustments. See, I mean, you can even journal and say, okay, how do I
Yep.
feel after watching the sunrise every morning for a month? And then you
Yep.
can see the change and then add something else. You see an issue, make an adjustment, do some research, and take your health into your own hands. Um,
I completely
so,
agree.
with that being said, we'll jump into the next sense for time
Yeah.
purposes.
Yep.
Smell. So, we've got deodorants, we've got perfumes, we've got
Mhm.
chemicals, and gassing off. Let's see.
Yeah.
Pheromones. I know we talked about pheromones and
Yep.
smelling salts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different things out there. And like you were saying, that's why we're doing the five senses. All those different five senses play into our body. It's how our body recognizes the environment around us. The thing
Mm-hmm.
with today is there's so many chemicals, like you said, perfume and all these different things. Like I can't even step close to a what is it, a Bed Bath and Beyond or what's that one of the store where it's just candles and stuff everywhere. Like
I think
and
you
you
hit
can
the nail on the
smell,
head.
yeah, like you can smell it forever, but all it is chemicals. Those are artificially made, artificially scented, and those are just toxic chemicals that you're breathing in. But the thing is they're based off of natural plants, but
Mm-hmm.
it's cheaper to make it in a lab and have the control over it because you can just make a whole bunch of it in the lab rather somebody has to go out and pick the flower and now you got to process the flower and you got to take the oils out of it and now you have this really pure natural smell because like I have like a bunch of essential oils that's
Mm-hmm.
basically my different colognes and stuff like that I wear but all of that plays into it. I know like me and my wife will go to the mall or we'll go somewhere and like there'll be times where she's like okay I gotta leave this store and I've gone before I'm like okay I gotta find what's happening here and I go and find they got like a little Scentsy in the corner, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that just sometimes that puts her over the edge of just all that kind of toxin that she's breathing in and all of a sudden she can feel it and she's like if I don't get out of here I'm not going to start I'm going to start to get a headache or something like that. Same thing with deodorants too. Deodorant can have those smells. Deodorant's another type of toxin that can absorb through your skin if there's aluminum or something in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but moving, so there's so many different toxins, candles, perfume, cologne, all those different things. But you also talk about okay, pheromones. Okay, huge part of it. Naturally, we both at both sexes release pheromones. That's how our hormones and our subconscious are attracted to each other. And so we really need those things. It's something that we can't really smell. Like you wouldn't be able to like oh yeah that's pheromones. It's something that's kind of that subconscious. Thing is wearing deodorant, doing other things, depending on what you put into your body, depends on what comes out of your body, and that can
Mm-hmm.
completely affect your pheromones. And so now if you're eating a lot of junk food or you're wearing toxic deodorant or deodorant with antiperspirant, so it's got aluminum in it, but now we're blocking those sweat receptors. Now you're not putting out those pheromones, or those pheromones are now different or altered. And now we might not attract the female that we're supposed to, or maybe the more dominant female, or something like that. What's also interesting is I've been reading a book called The Estro Generation. Um, I think it's kind of fitting for this, but one of the
Mm-hmm.
things I actually I was reading is that a woman on birth control, okay, actually when a male puts out pheromones, the birth control changes the pheromones that she goes towards.
Wow.
So when she's like on birth control, it's not completely, but it's essentially mimicking that she's pregnant. So if she's pregnant, she's now not looking for the aggressive, leading, go getter male that's putting out those pheromones. She's looking for the more nurturing, soft hearted, caring male because she's pregnant, right? So now
Mm,
she's looking for a male to live life with, to take care of a baby. Not that, again, that aggressive male and everything like that can't be a father, but now that birth control actually switches her senses to where she can be more attracted to a different pheromone from a different guy. Maybe that's still
hmm.
the right guy for her. Maybe it's not. Our divorce rates are nearly 70% right now. So maybe
One
that
of
happened
the
to our
uh,
baby.
one of the one of the studies that I've seen maybe a couple of years ago was that when your spouse cries, her tears actually excrete a pheromone that
Yep.
causes the man's testosterone to decrease in order to make him more
Sensitive.
nurturing and more sensitive, right? So I do think it is incredible how God actually does create us to be unified and
100%.
even on a hormonal level. So there, even though your wife crying makes you more nurturing, that's actually beneficial for both of you
Mm-hmm.
because you're able to be there for her, right?
Yep.
Now, on the
100%.
other hand, like you said, if your pheromones or if she's on birth control and your pheromones are acting as like an antagonist to her, then you're actually going to be butting heads with each other very likely
Yep.
because she might not want a docile man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that most women want a man that is willing and able to lead and allow her to kind of step into her femininity. Um,
Yep.
even though women want to be a part of, right? So I'm not saying
Yep.
that the
Yep.
man's 100% just taking control of everything because control is not unity, right? You
Yep.
need to be a team, and in order to
Mm-hmm.
be a team, uh, you have to step into your roles, and that means you have to get your
Yep.
hormones in check so that they are not a defining factor of how you treat one another, how you make
100%.
decisions, and even just what kind of personality or characteristics that you have as well.
Yep. And it's the perfect example. Like me, and my wife, we're both business owners. We run this business together. My wife's been a very high level athlete her whole life. Somebody who is, I would say, as a female, a little bit more aggressive in nature with a lot of different aspects. It's finding that dynamic to where we can work together, right? Where at certain points in time, I can lead and I can make decisions, but then when I'm not around, I know that she's still capable of doing X, Y, and Z, complementing all these tasks, and know she's going to get the job done. But just finding that balance of when's that appropriate time to step into more of that femininity and also being more on the other end of that spectrum. For everybody's a little bit different. Some don't necessarily have that little bit more, but it's just learning how to switch back and forth between those. And so I completely agree with you. So,
Awesome, man. Yeah, and there's I think though too that there's I know we're gonna jump into taste here in a minute, but there's a difference in what they call machismo masculinity, which is like the expression of masculinity. It's all the things that
yep.
you do. You stick your chest out, you go and cut the wood, you go and you kill the deer, you build fires, you
Yep.
do really cool stuff. That is the expression of masculinity in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And I believe that those are tools and those are beneficial in society and in relationship. But at the same time, there is the duty and role of masculinity as well, meaning that
Yeah.
you are a servant, you are a father that is able to father, right? Not just
Yep.
be there as a parent, but to father your children, to teach your children, to coach your children, right? And then as a husband, you are to be able to coach and lead and be decisive about things, right? So it's not just about the expression of like courage and bravery and having the biggest muscles and all of that. That does play a role, but your hormones are much more than just looking as though you are masculine. It plays into your drive, it plays into your dopamine, it plays into your adrenaline and all these other hormones, your ability to actually have enjoyable life. Like most
100%.
people that you see with low testosterone also have low self-confidence, and
Yep.
therefore they're not really courageous in anything that they do. And that's not just
Yeah.
in like fighting other men, that's in like making business decisions, or, knowing what you're going to eat for dinner.
Yep.
It can be detrimental in so many areas of your life. So it makes you really sit here and think, okay, how am I operating in life? And is it possible that maybe I've got some hormonal issues going on that I don't even know about?
Mhm.
And let's
Mhm.
check into that, because I want to have a great life where I'm thriving in these different areas, and I'm able to lead, and I'm able to be the best possible father, husband, business owner that I can be. So let's look into that. Let's figure out what's going on. Let's take this
Mhm.
our health by uh into our own hands, and do something with it, right?
Yep.
With that being said, in terms of like making decisions and knowing what
Yeah.
you want to eat for dinner, the dopamine reward systems for taste, right? Because I
Oh
think
yeah.
that, like you said, with the gut and all of that, a lot of people, well, I'll preface it this way. I started out as a personal trainer in 2012, and I realized
Yeah.
I was way too nosy to be just a personal trainer. Like most personal
Yeah.
trainers take the personal out of it, and they just get the workouts done with their clients and,
Mhm.
send them out the door. With me, I'm like, okay, what's going on with your life? Like, we got to figure out what's going on, because you're emotionally eating. And if you're emotionally eating, your time here with me is just being, it's not making a whole lot of progress. So I want to get
Yep.
you to your goal. So we got to figure out what's going on and get it
Yep.
handled so that these workouts are actually being beneficial to you, right? And so, with that being said, I'll let you take the reins on taste.
Yeah. Um, Food is one of the most emotional things on the planet, arguably probably the most emotional thing on the planet. People argue and be like, okay, well, like sex is the most emotional thing. And I say, well, take away sex for a week and take away food for a week and see which one you get more upset with, right?
Come on.
So food is very emotional, and especially in today's day and age, because that's what our society has gone to, trying to make food very enjoyable, having that dopamine release, you making it basically addictive. And one of the biggest contributors to that is going to be sugar. You look at most food today, processed food, everything is going to have sugar in it. I mean, even down to like your bacon, like leave bacon alone. You don't need to
Amen.
put sugar on it. Bacon's good by itself, right? But they throw sugar and these different things into all of it. And like you said, it causes a dopamine release. The sugar does these, just everything that tastes good, all those different things. It fires up those senses. It fires up our brain. It causes those serotonin, dopamine, those happy hormone releases. And so many of us, we crave that, and then we crave it more and more. It's almost like smoking. It's almost like
Mhm.
nicotine, where we just want the next one. We get that quick little dopamine release. We want the next one. We want it again. We want it more. We want it bigger. And so it's starting again, like we talked before, just breaking that habit is one of the biggest things. And especially when we talk about guys and hormones, sugar is one of the biggest things that can start to disrupt your testosterone levels. There's
Mhm.
really a direct connection between testosterone and your estrogen, specifically estradiol. This is called an aromatase pathway. It is promoted by sugar and insulin. Okay. So the more sugar you eat, the more your testosterone converts into that estradiol. So the more sugar you eat, the more your hormones are out of balance, and basically the more you turn into a woman, kind of thing. And so again, but that's a snowball rolling out of control kind of thing.
Mhm.
You start to eat that sugar, your hormones start to shift, you start to feel worse. So now you go more towards comfort food to make you feel better, when really in the
Mhm.
end, you need to break that cycle to start to feel better and get your testosterone levels back up. But again, we want that quick. We want that quick dopamine hit, which can come from the ice cream or come from something else. And it's just about breaking that habit. And whenever I think about food, I always try to look at it like, what's going to be the best thing for me? Because most people, when you think, okay, what's for dinner? Well, what tastes good? I
Hmm.
never think that way, right? My first thought is, okay, what's going to be good for me? What gaps do I need to fill from my last meal? Here's what I have for breakfast. Here's what I had for lunch. What sort of gaps, what sort of balance can I have out of what I need? What sounds good? Most people go to, well, what sounds good to me? What's going to taste good? And they just go for that. And that's where, again, emotions are making that decision rather taking emotion out of it. Like for dinner, I literally had Braunschweiger, which is basically just liverwurst. I fried that in a pan. I had spicy sauerkraut, and I had some Brussels sprouts. So
That
that
is
was my dinner.
that
So
is a gut diamond right there, son. That is
yeah,
awesome.
that's a
That is awesome.
rock star meal right there. But I mean, it's just having that mindset, that change in mindset of, okay, I'm picking this meal. What am I picking and why am I picking it? Am I
Mhm.
emotionally picking it because I know I'm gonna get that hormone release and that dopamine release, or am I picking it because I know it's going to nourish my body and fuel my testosterone and all these different things? So it's just a mindset shift is the biggest hurdle to overcome, and it's taking food away from people. That's where they get emotional with it, because
Absolutely.
I test food allergies, and like, okay, a tomato's on your list, and people like, tomato, and like they just freak out, and I'm like, it's only a tomato. Like,
Yeah.
there's thousands of other foods you can eat, but they freak out over that thing because they're just so used to having it, and they just want it, right? It's, again, that emotional gratification from that food.
Well, even so, it's a habit that they built. It's that like especially in the South, you take away a good homegrown, tomato, and because we will sit here and put a tomato slice in our hand and shake some salt and pepper on it, and we would just eat
Mm-hmm.
it raw. And
Yep.
it's good. It is outstanding. And if you look at anybody else, and they'll say, "Hey, that's actually healthy. That's pretty healthy," you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not necessarily about whether or not it's healthy. It's how does your body respond to it? Because
Exactly.
even in training, I tell my clients, I'm like, okay, if you eat and you don't work out, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is your body telling that food to do?
Yep.
It's to it's to restore your energy levels, right? And then if it has excess, it's going to go and store it. Okay. But
Mm-hmm.
if you work out prior to your meal, and you break down some muscles, and you tear some muscle fibers, and then you eat, your body's going to be like, how do I become more efficient? What needs to be fixed? Like you're telling your body what you want to do with the food that you are eating, right? And then return how your body is responding to that, whether you are being more inflamed, whether you are getting headaches, whether your emotions kind of take a swing. You have to listen to what your body is saying back to you by according to what you were eating. Food journals are awesome in that way because you're able
Mm-hmm.
to actually take note of what tastes good. Well, I mean, not what tastes good, sorry. What is
Yep.
affecting you positively and what's affecting you negatively.
Yep.
So I normally take a slow approach with my clients
Yep.
whenever we are doing anything nutritional, because I know that if I restrict their complete diet from the get-go, it's very likely they're not going to do any of the other things either. So we'll start with
Mm-hmm.
small things, right? Whether that be Cokes, whether that be, beans or what have you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll have them tell me, okay, how did you feel this week when we took out X, right? Because we
Yep.
took out one thing. That's it. Oh, I feel pretty good. It's like, that sounds terrible. Sounds terrible. I know you're so sad that you feel so great, you know? And
Yep.
and that's how it is though. There's an addiction aspect to it. And I really do think that, and this is just my opinion, I would love your opinion on this as well, but
Mm-hmm.
like the carnivore diet as a therapeutic process, because I like to build a diet rather than just follow a diet. So
Yep.
a specific diet would be, okay, we're going to take away everything that's inflammatory. We're going to eat, animal products. And
Yep.
then because they're not going to induce insulin as much, you're going to kind of help heal the pancreas. You're going to help level out your blood sugar. You're going to, all these other things, right? Even level out your hormones to some extent. And then you'll slowly start creeping different things back in one at a time.
Yep.
So you'll add leafy vegetables in to some extent, right? And then you're going
Yep.
to be like, okay, well, the only thing I've had other than meat was leafy vegetables. So, and I feel like crap now. So let's not put that in there. Let's try something else next week. Right.
Yep.
And then so you're actually building a diet based on how your body is responding to the food that you're putting into it.
Yep. I yeah, I completely agree. That's one of the biggest things is just finding something to again break that cycle. Going carnivore, something like that is a great. I tell people one of the best things, especially as a guy, one of the best things you can do, and especially if you're struggling with food and overcoming that emotional kind of connection to it and those cravings,
Mhm.
doing something like that or fasting. Do a
Oh
72
yeah.
hour fast. If you do a 72-hour fast, you're just drinking water, anything's going to sound good once you get to eat food again. Doesn't don't matter, don't care if it's a Brussels sprout, if it's anything like that. But exactly, right? You're taking away some of those things and you're adding back in that quality food and showing them, hey, here's the base and here's what we can start to add on to there. And then
Mhm.
they're gonna start to notice those differences. And like you said too, like emotionally and internally they're struggling because like yeah I feel great but I want my egg
Mhm.
but dang it I feel great, right? So it's like this emotional battle or like dang yeah you were right but oh, it sure sounds good. And it's just it takes time, it really does, it takes time. And once you start to break that cycle you start to feel better. One of the main things I start to feel like for me, like I don't eat any gluten. I don't eat any grains or anything like that. I'm not necessarily like sensitive or allergic or intolerant to them. But I know if I were to go eat like a traditional pizza full of
Mhm.
gluten and stuff like that, I would wake up the next morning feeling like crap. Like my
Mhm.
gut would be inflamed, my cheeks would literally be inflamed. Usually my wedding ring, like I almost can't get it off just because it inflames me. And so like I'm in such a good place now that I know that if I eat that, I know the repercussions and I don't want to go that way. And so
That's
now I
right.
have almost the opposite emotional response to that I've just built up over time where it's like, yeah, I know I don't want to do that. Like, but I still have the old memory of like, man, I know it's going to taste so good, but that emotion isn't as strong as I know how I'm going to feel tomorrow kind of
Mhm.
thing. So it's just
I know
battling that.
when I started doing more keto
Yep.
one of the things that I noticed was when I introduced a higher amount of carbohydrates into my diet, my body had adapted, had keto adapted, and it didn't want carbohydrates anymore. Like it would
Yep.
negatively affect me to eat carbs. I would be so groggy. It would feel like I ate a full, like three different Thanksgiving dinners because my
Yep.
body no longer knew what to do with those carbs because I'm giving it jet fuel all day long, every day. Even
Mhm.
when I'm not eating, it's using my own body's fat to, which is what we're designed to do. Like we have
Yep.
the metabolism to be able to access that fat whenever we take away all of these shortcut drugs. You know, if you
Yep.
think about it, the pharmaceutical industry and the food industry are not too dissimilar. But
You're
yeah,
not wrong.
talking about the intermittent fasting and the prolonged fasting, after
Yeah.
72 hours of fasting, I feel like I'm about to go to war. I mean, not in a negative way. Like I'm cognitively sharp. It's almost
Mhm.
like God knew how we needed to be able to like hunt and be
Yep.
focused, and our
Yep.
testosterone will be higher, and we're ready to rock and roll.
Mhm.
And we're driven because we haven't had any food, instead of us being completely depleted and just
Mhm.
die from not eating for 24 hours. You know,
Yep.
our body responds in a proper way in order to get us to a place of survival, right?
Yep.
Is
But
there
yeah, I
anything
think
else you wanted to touch on for taste before we move on to touch?
I think that's the biggest thing. And I heard something the other day. It was kind of profound, and it's like it. I'm gonna see if I can get it correct. If you're hungry, the question was, if you're hungry, when was the last time that you didn't eat? So are you really feeding your hunger or are you feeding your addiction?
Mm,
Right.
that's so good.
And I heard that and I was like, oh my goodness, right? Because when's that? Like, if we get hungry, we just eat, right? We just constantly feed that craving. But when's the last time that you were hungry and you're like, nope, not gonna eat? voluntarily, right? And so that's where it's like, is it really hunger, or is it an addiction kind of thing? Because you're perfectly fine. Everybody's like, oh, I won't make it if I don't eat breakfast and I don't eat lunch. Like, no, you'll be just fine. Like, you
Yeah.
will not die. You will be fine. You've trained your body to know that it's going to get breakfast, lunch, and dinner and a snack. So now that's what it's expecting. So now you're
Hmm.
breaking that habit. You will be perfectly fine not eating a single thing for 3 days.
That's right.
Yeah,
And
your
I tell
body
people
might be
too.
angry. Yeah, your body might be angry at you. You might get a
Yeah.
headache. Your stomach's going to be upset with you until like hour 16 or 20 when it
Hmm.
realizes, oh, okay, you're not feeding me. But then it'll switch, but you're going to be perfectly fine. So, yeah, are you feeding your hunger or are you feeding your addiction?
And most of the time, though, too, if you're feeling like crap whenever you're not eating and you're struggling so mentally that you got to get some food, like kind of withdrawals,
Mhm.
that can be mitigated by just making sure that your electrolytes and your hydration are on par.
100%.
And
100%.
that brings something else to mind before we move on to touch. But I'm not a fan of the 6 meal a day protocol because of the strain that it actually puts on your pancreas. Because your insulin levels never have an opportunity to get down to base level, and your blood sugar ends up you start this reward system issue in your body to where okay, my insulin level, my blood sugar is dropping, so I've got to immediately get some sugar back in my blood because your body's getting used to that, right? So it's more of this is the your norm rather than your body ever having an opportunity to rest. I mean, that's exactly what causes like diabetes is never giving your pancreas enough time to rest, right?
100%. Completely agree with you. I teach my patients the same thing. I generally eat 2 meals a day. I don't eat breakfast. I have usually like a black coffee, or I have like a bulletproof coffee. So I put MCT, coconut oil, something like that in my coffee. That's my
Hmm.
breakfast. Because just like we were talking before, like you incorporated grains and sugar back in your diet, and what you felt like crap, right?
Hmm.
Fat is 7 times more productive and energy wise than sugar is. So it's a much more efficient fuel source. And so I typically eat 2 meals a day, and you're 100% correct. The more food you eat, the more food you put in your body, the more your pancreas has to work to release insulin to then digest that food and absorb that sugar and all those different things. It's like putting miles on a car. Okay. The more you do it, the more miles you put on the car, and the sooner it's going to wear out. And so I typically try to eat 2 meals a day. I eat a little bit larger meals in those 2 meals. I know
Hmm.
some people go 1 meal a day. It's just kind of the less meals for me, the better. But I try to start, most people I try to start with three, and just depending, different for males and females. Now, hormonally, we're different. Stress is different. So it's going to be different from sex to sex. But like guys are perfectly fine eating 2 meals a day, and like
Hmm.
you can eat bigger meals, like that's fine. You can still get your calories in and different things like that, but it's also what are those calories composed of, biggest thing. And like a lot of people see changes, right? They're like, well, I started eating 6 smaller meals a day and I saw all these great improvements. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, well, with that you started a new program, so you also probably started to make better food choices
That's
with
right.
that. But it's like, okay, eat 6 pieces of pizza a day, but spread them out. You're still not going to feel good, right? So it's
Hmm.
like they're making other changes, but that's just part of it. And so I completely agree. You're gonna end up with diabetes eventually
That's
if
right.
you're
You're
if
actually
you're
writing a check that you're not going to be able to cash later, is basically what it amounts to.
yep. Yep.
Um, so it's not so much about the amount of calories that you get in or the
Yep.
amount of you're not letting your gut rest. Uh,
Yep. Yep.
and it there's a diagram that I might drop on the screen that kind of illustrates the difference in your body being in a fat storage state and a fat burning state. Whenever insulin is present in your body, you're actually anabolic. Therefore, anabolic means that you are in an energy storage state, right? So if you're eating
Yep.
6 meals a day and you're never dropping below into the fat burning state, then where's all that energy going from all those meals that you are eating 6 times a day,
Mhm.
right? So you might be losing weight, but you might also be sacrificing some protein. and all of this other stuff as well. So that's a whole nother conversation, whole nother podcast. Uh, but but yeah,
We're gonna have to
so
do a couple more of these.
for sure. We'll go ahead and jump into touch. What I've
Yeah.
got listed here is absorption of contaminants,
Yeah.
sunscreens, temperature therapy.
Going down like the chemical side of it, it's going to be very similar to smell. Same similar type of thing. Actually, what my rule of thumb is that if you're not willing to eat it, you should not be willing to put it on your skin
That's so good.
because if it goes on your skin, it's going to absorb in, and within 28 seconds, it's in your bloodstream, it's in your body.
Hmm.
So all those lotions, all those different things, same thing as what we talked about, the smell, candles, perfume, those same artificial scents and toxins are in the lotions and all those different things. You put them on, they absorb right through. Now they're in your body, and now your body has to deal with them. And so, big part of that is just, yeah, avoiding those different things, picking more natural. Again, essential oils, you can diffuse them in the air and it still smells good. You can put them on your skin, and these are going to be real plants. So, not this is doTERRA. So, this is one called Balance, has some different good stuff in there. Really good
Hmm.
at just helping like cortisol levels and different things like that. But, moving over to like the temperature part of it, one thing as humans is we become very comfortable. We're always looking for comfort, right? When we go to the gym, what are we doing? We're stressing out our muscles enough so that they have to adapt to get stronger to be able to withstand that load that we're putting on it.
That's right.
Same thing with the rest of our body. What are we trying to do? We live in air conditioned and heated houses. Our cars are heated and air conditioned. We got heated seats. We got all these different things to live in comfort. What we don't do is we don't push ourselves out of those comfort zones in those other realms. So something like saunas, especially infrared sauna. We talked about infrared with the sunlight, UV lights. Infrared saunas are great. I have one at my clinic and I have one also at my house. Okay. So infrared saunas are great. That's that over that heating kind of over that normal comfort level to the point where you're
Hmm.
sweating, point where you have more endorphin release, different things like that. I'm drawing a blank on the endorphin.
Detoxing.
Yeah, it's good with detoxing, different things like that. But there's one big endorphin at a certain temperature that your body releases that's really good for your heart and a lot of those different things. So that's the heat aspect of it. Like you said, detoxing, all those different things. Great benefits come from that. On the
Hmm.
other side of that spectrum comes the cold therapy. That's something that I've gotten into a lot more over the last year and a half or so, doing ice baths, doing cold showers, doing different things like that. What's interesting is it can help in so many different ways. It can help with circulation. It can help with just like fat burning, energy burning, help with good storage of fat. You have brown fat around your organs. That's good, healthy fat around those organs, very
Hmm.
high activity metabolically. But again, same similar thing is like we don't expose ourselves to cold very much. So now our body is not as adaptable. Okay. The
Hmm.
more you control those exposures, the more your body's adaptable. All your arteries have muscles in them. That's how they can constrict and dilate. If you never expose it to cold, it never constricts all the way. Okay.
Hmm.
So now we have so many problems with circulation. We have people with swelling in their feet. They have varicose veins and all these different things. And I tell all of them, go stick your feet in a bucket of ice water. About 5% actually do it, but the ones that do
Hmm.
it see so many results, great results. And I'm like, hey, it's free. It's free. Get a bucket. I'm sure you have one laying around. Put some ice in there. Put as cold as water as you can. Stick your feet in there for 3 minutes. If you want to start a couple times a week, work up to every night. Month later, they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, swelling's gone. My feet feel so much better, all this different stuff. And it's just like, it's free, right? But what are they? They'd rather pay money for this supplement and that supplement and all these different things when it's simple changes like that. And so
Right.
exposing yourself to that cold can just help your body be more adaptable and just overall function better.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that you're actually exposing yourself, like you said, to discomfort, and most people are not willing to do that. So when you expose
Correct.
yourself to discomfort, we're getting back to what we were talking about what message are you sending your body? And then your body's going to respond to the message that you send it, right? So you break down the muscle, then you rest. You're telling your body, I got a muscle that needs to be recovered. I'm giving you food and equipment
Yep.
to take care of that job, and then I'm going to rest and let you do your job. And
Yep.
that's how you communicate. And I remember when I was in high school and I started doing contrast showers. So
Yep.
I would take my regular shower and then I would go as hot as I could bear for like a minute. And then I would go as cold as I could bear for about 30 seconds. And then
Mhm.
I would notice
Right.
that my skin temperature, I would pay attention to my skin temperature. If my skin temperature was no longer hot or warm, the cold water wouldn't be even that cold, right? Because my skin temperature was trying to decrease. So what was actually happening, and I would cycle that like 7 times and then end on cold. But what was
Yep.
happening was like all the blood was rushing to my capillaries whenever the water was hot, and then all the blood was rushing to my organs whenever the water was cold. So you're cycling, you're dilating those blood vessels, and that in itself, oh my gosh, I would do that before bed, and I would have the best sleep. It was just a euphoric feeling of rejuvenation. Doing
100%.
that as much though, because um, whenever you have a heavy workout or whatever, some of that inflammation is actually beneficial. Um,
Yep.
and so whenever you take those cold showers after, and you're trying to bodybuild, you're actually kind of getting in the way of that growth
Hmm.
process.
Yeah.
But if you're wanting to recover, that's a whole nother story. There's times and places for cold and heat.
Yep.
But yeah, man, that's really good stuff. Like, and
Yeah.
it's so amazing to me. It's so amazing to me that people, you know, it, there is this bad stigma on social media where it's just a fad, right?
Hmm.
And you see people doing ice baths and stuff. And there's like, oh, these people are crazy. They're just trying to, they're chasing clout. No, man, they're trying to get you on board, like get on the bandwagon. This stuff is
Yep.
amazing.
Yep.
And they're doing it for themselves. They're looking great. Their abs are
Yep.
popping. And let me tell you something. If you've never got out of an ice bath and felt like you dropped about 3% body fat because you're all tightened up, your
Yep.
inflammation's gone, and your
Hmm.
joints feel better. Oh my gosh, man, it is so worth it. I'm gonna do a plug here real quick because
Yeah.
they have great prices and great products, and they do not endorse me, okay, or sponsor me. But New Recover, I've got a New
Mhm.
Recover ice bath. It's inflatable, it's portable. You can take it with you to a hotel, but do not flood your hotel room. Um, it's insulated, so it
Yep.
actually helps to keep that temperature low for a longer period of time. If you're looking for a cheaper option, uh, and you don't just want to do a 5 minute cold shower at the end of your showers every day, this is a good option. I think it's like $110. It comes with ice trays and things like that. But they also just came out with an at-home sauna. So
There you
it's
go.
I'm gonna get one eventually, but it's you kind of zip it up, you pop it up like a tent, and it's absolutely awesome. So go look at that.
Awesome.
Maybe one day they'll see this and they'll give me a coupon code or something. But until that day, go ahead and go to newrecover.com. But yeah, man, was there anything
Awesome.
else you wanted to touch on touch?
No, yeah, I think that's really it. And you hit the nail on the head. Start with those cold showers. That's one of the best way, doing those contrasts and stuff like that. Work your way up to a nice bath. It's only 3 minutes. You only got to do it for 3 minutes. That's nothing. And you feel like $1 million when you get out. But yeah, just work on those things. And the thing is like, yeah, people can say it's a fad. People can do all that stuff. My patients that start to do these things, I can really show you numbers that
Mhm.
prove that this influences them. I have a lady who is going through kidney failure, runs in the family. Like literally, like she's on borderline of dialysis. She finally found me. To give you kind of a reference, GFR is a measure of kidney flow. It's glomerular filtration rate, so how much your kidneys can filter everything out. I would say average as a kid, you start around 100 and it kind of slowly starts chipping away. I'm looking for anything kind of over 80 is kind of normal, especially as you start to age a little bit. When she came to me, hers was at a 24.
Mhm.
Um, 15 is when they put you on dialysis. Okay. So 24 is very low. she goes every 6 months to her medical doctor, gets these things checked. For basically the last 20 years, she's slowly watch herself basically die, basically deteriorate. Basically every 6 months, goes down one or two, goes down one or two, goes down one or two. I worked with her for a year and a half, and we kept it stable at 24. First time in her life that it's actually stayed stable. I introduced her to Wim Hof. So I had her read the book, talks about ice therapy and breathing exercises. In a matter of 6 months, she's at a GFR of 34.
Wow.
So she's never had to go up. Her doctor is like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't like whatever you're doing, keep doing it. So like I can really show you proof that like it influences the body positively. I can show you test results that have all this. Like it matters. And if you don't think, like, read Wim Hof's book. Like he has amazing stories in there of different patients and different people that fight cancer and all kinds of stuff. So it matters.
One more thing. I'm surprised we didn't even touch on this yet,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
tap water, is that something that in
Yeah.
her scenario, what was a determining factor as well?
Um, it probably was earlier in life, but she was one of those patients where like she had to take control of her own health.
Mm,
And she knew, especially with kidney issues, water was a huge thing. Like if she didn't drink a gallon of water a day, she would start to have blood in her urine. So like
mm,
she had to constantly have that water to keep things flowing. Um, but I know earlier in life it is tap water. If you want to look up your water supply, go to EWG, so environmentalworkinggroup.org/tap water. Type in your zip code and see what shows up. So, but yeah, tap water is huge. There's so many chemicals, there's so many different toxins in there. And one of the biggest things is your water is probably legal. That does not mean it's safe.
that's right.
Those standards completely, they just don't line up. And so the tap water and things like that are probably one of the biggest toxins that we have. There's just so many different chemicals and so many different things that don't get filtered out. One of them also being hormones from birth control. So
Hmm.
nearly, I think it's 67% of women are on birth control. Um, I test that through a urine sample. So when they're going to the bathroom every day, it's going right into the toilet, right into that water supply, and it's not filtered out. So now, if you're drinking plain old tap water, you're also getting some of that hormone and some of those different things in there, along with all the different toxins. So, highly recommend a good water filter. Most of the time, I recommend reverse osmosis. That's going to be your best one. The thing is, you want to remineralize the water. Reverse osmosis really pulls everything out of it, and you
Hmm.
have to have some electrolytes in there. So, like, I use my brand actually remineralizes it before it comes out. So it's a 14 stage. Um, you're going to
Wow.
spend more money on it. Yeah. So you're going to spend more money on it. My single system, I think it runs like $1,700. I have one at the house, and I have one at the clinic.
Hmm.
Um, but otherwise, besides that, you can get smaller systems. And what I recommend is Celtic sea salt or pink Himalayan salt. That's going to be your best electrolyte. Just a sprinkle in your water is going to give you
Hmm.
all those different electrolytes. Great for hydration, great for all those different things. But yeah, get a good water filter. Anything is better than nothing. So even if it's a Brita, that's obviously not the best choice, but it is better than nothing. And then with
Absolutely.
that, sprinkle of some Celtic sea salt, pink Himalayan salt, you're good to go.
See, I love I don't, have you heard of the snake, what's it called? Snake juice. It's
Snake.
basically, yeah, I know it sounds weird,
Have
and
not.
it was branded by a guy that created it, but it's basically pink Himalayan salt, uh,
Hmm.
edible Epsom salt,
Okay.
baking soda, and no salt
Hmm.
or new salt. So you get,
Yeah.
um, you get your sodiums, you get your magnesium, and some of your other electrolytes as well.
Yep.
I drink that. I put in about a gallon of water. You can put it in a liter or a gallon of water, and that could be the primary thing
Mhm.
that you drink. Of course, if you can get your electrolytes from your foods rather than having to drink them, that is the best way to go about it.
Yep.
But if you have to supplement for sure.
Yep.
And then another thing though is too is that like if you are on a lower carbohydrate diet, carbohydrates and sodium actually are very water soluble, right?
Yep.
They help to hold water within your body. And if you are not eating very many carbs and you don't have very much sodium in your body, then you're actually not going to be holding on to much water either. So you're going to end up peeing a lot. And when you pee a lot, you flush your kidneys out and your kidneys hold your electrolytes. So you want to make sure that if you're having issues like headaches or things like that, that you are also incorporating those electrolytes into your low carb diet. Um,
Yep.
but I want to touch on one more thing before we jump to hearing, which is
Okay.
going to be our last sense, and then we're going to jump through some questions.
Yep.
Um, so I noticed that when it comes to absorption, and we talk about tap water and everything like that, I know I looked at my tap water here locally, and it was, we had arsenic, we had chlorine, we had chromium, and it was just these astronomical, like 724 times the recommended amount for the human body. I'm like, how is that possibly legal? And it can't be.
Yep.
And anyway, I seen a video where this guy he was testing the chlorine in two different glasses of water, right? He put his hand in one before he put the droplet that would expose the chlorine, and he took his hand out and then he put the droplets in there and chlorine was not found. It's because his body actually absorbed the chlorine from the water. And so I don't know if you want chlorine in your body, but it can't be good. We swim in chlorine rich pools instead of like sand focused pools and stuff like that, or sand filtered pools. Um, and, and I'm gonna say one more thing. Magnesium is not necessarily as absorbable to the body whenever you consume it. It's actually, I love to use Epsom salt in baths because that magnesium actually absorbs through the skin much better than if you are to actually consume it. So, um, I'm gonna throw it back to you, but it
Yep.
is so important to know what is in your water so that you can help kind of take control over what you're putting into your body that could be, toxicifying you or even poisoning you.
Yep. I always say start with the basics.
Yeah.
Water is essential to life. So make sure you know what you're doing with your water. Make sure you have good quality water. And I can see it makes such a big difference. Even the simple thing is if you change nothing else and you just add a little bit of that sea salt to it, can make a
Hmm.
massive difference. I mean, this is where, like, if people argue with me, I just say, okay, let's go back to chemistry class. And I say osmosis, and most people cringe. But that's how
Hmm.
osmosis works, right? Water wants those electrolytes in there, and so it
Hmm.
has to. And so if you're drinking something like a purified water, okay, purified water doesn't have electrolytes in it, it can actually start to pull it out of your body. Okay.
Wow.
So you drink that water, it can actually start to pull it out of your cells. And now you can become more dehydrated because you're drinking not good water.
Wow.
And I know for me, like you said, you drink like a gallon. I drink probably around a gallon too. But like people are like, if I drink that much water, I'm just going to pee all day. Well, you're not absorbing it very well then. So same
That's
thing,
right.
add some salt water, add some of that magnesium in there. Again, magnesium isn't super absorbed. It also depends on what kind of magnesium. There's several different forms,
Hmm.
but you add some of those things in there, now it can absorb better. I mean, I have people's headaches that go away like that. And I say, well, add some sea salt to your water. They start drinking more sea salt water, their headaches go away because their brain was dehydrated because they're drinking not good water and slowly pulling water and pulling nutrients out of the brain and out of the body. So simple things like that. Like you said, magnesium is not absorbed well. I literally use magnesium as a laxative.
Yeah.
So that just shows you that it's not fully absorbed because if you drink enough of it, it's just going to come out the other end.
It's
Like if
very efficient.
it very is. Side note, I don't know. I use it for colonoscopies. If I have a patient that has to have a colonoscopy, instead of
Hmm.
drinking that nasty toxic sludge, I'll
Hmm.
give them a bottle of magnesium, which I would never tell anybody to take a whole bottle of it. But I say, okay, finish this before midnight
Yeah.
and you're going to be cleaned out. Never had an issue.
Is that
Never
more
had
along
a,
the lines of magnesium citrate or
yeah,
yeah?
yep, yep,
One of the things I do with my clients that are on keto for the first time and are in the middle of that keto flu, for example, which is definitely an
yeah,
electrolyte issue.
yep,
They're like, I've got the worst headache. And I was like, all right, I want you to go into your kitchen and I want to give you something that's better than Excedrin. And they're like, what are you doing? I was like, I want you to take a pinch of salt and just put it under your tongue and tell me what happens. And
yep,
uh, and they're like, that is crazy. I can't believe that a pinch of salt solved my headache. And I was like, yep,
yep,
it's crazy.
yep.
But well, cool, man.
Simple.
Let's jump into hearing real quick, and then we're gonna go through some audience questions. Which, by
Yeah,
the way, if you are not following on Instagram, that's a great place to get involved in the podcast because I will send out a post saying, "Hey, this is the subject we're going to be talking about, and this is your opportunity to ask some questions, and maybe they will get answered." Anyway, follow me on Instagram. It's Coach_Yateman, YEATMAN_. And also, I'll give you the opportunity to plug yourself as well on Instagram or
yeah,
wherever they might contact you the best.
yeah. Instagram's going to be the best. It's going to be Dr. Shane Huyser. So just DrShaneHuyser. So just Dr. Shane Huyser
Awesome. I'll put all that
across all
information.
platforms.
I'll put all that information here on the screen so that if you're
Awesome.
watching on YouTube, then you can follow along. So we'll jump into hearing real quick.
Mhm.
Something that I do every single night. I started doing it maybe 2 to 3 years ago, and I have not been able to honestly go to sleep without it. It's kind of my security blanket now, is
Mhm.
binaural beats and
Yeah.
specific frequencies within binaural beats and then frequencies in general. It
Yep.
would be awesome. I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah. I mean, just like our other senses, it's how our body is interpreting the environment around us. And it can always, it can influence us, our nervous system, our hormones, all those different things. And so same thing, just like before we talked about screens, right? You have the bad light, all those different things, and they're influencing your body. Your brain has to recognize those things. And now it's can get tricked. Is it nighttime? Is it not nighttime? Is it time to go to sleep? Is it not time? Same thing. If you have the TV on, if you have something else on, if you have not the right music on, you're stimulating your brain and so that it can't turn off. You're influencing certain pathways, certain hormone releases, cortisol, all those different things. You can start to have releases. And that's why certain frequencies can definitely be more calming than others. Certain noises can be more calming than others. That's why some people love rain noise and different things like that. Other people love the
Mhm.
binaural beats. That's where it can start to even activate all those different things. It uses basically one side of your brain that can switch and use the other side of the brain. And it's this really calming kind of back and forth. The way I think about it is almost kind of like rocking a baby, right?
Mhm.
Rocking a baby. So same similar thing, but it's just those different noise. But you can also use it in other fashions. Okay, you're going to work out, you want to get the testosterone pumping, blood flowing, right? You can listen to some harder stuff, some more upbeat stuff. And so at the same way, you can start to utilize those different senses to either get in certain states and influence your nervous system and your hormones in a certain way. So there's just different ways to start to use those senses, especially sound and all those different things to influence your body.
Is there anything with these five senses we might not have covered that you think could be beneficial to the listener?
Um, we covered a lot. We
We
definitely
did.
covered a lot. Right off the top of my head, probably not that we covered. I mean, you could go down a lot of different rabbit holes on all the different ones, but we definitely covered the basics and how they can influence different things. I think another conversation we should have is the senses we don't necessarily recognize. So
Yeah,
EMFs and different things like that. Are those wireless earbuds?
they're not. They're wired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So like something like that, like it's those things, a lot of those things that we don't necessarily have the senses for that can really start to
Mhm.
influence our body. And those are harder because we don't recognize them as easily. But I mean, so many different things can play into it. Like even I think about it too, like our 5 love languages and stuff like that. Some people are touch people, right? So even just something as simple as touching somebody can make such a hormonal impact and affect our nervous system and so many different things. And so you start to recognize those and just be aware of them. And you can utilize so many different things with so many different people and start to influence them in a positive way, whether that be
That is
to
so good.
hype them up or calm them down or something like that. So
Hmm.
we're very social beings. And so just learning how to utilize those and being aware of them, you can really have a major impact on the people around you.
And we see how, like, and without going into psychology, um,
Yeah.
narcissists will do the complete opposite, of kind of helping their partner with their love languages and their hormones and all of that. They
Mhm.
pretty much keep them in a state of cortisol, increased
Yes.
cortisol, and or stress. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, if your relationships are not in check either, maybe it's something to
Mhm.
consider that you're
Yep.
also having a physical response to your environment as well.
Yeah.
Um, so awesome stuff, man. Well, to cap us off,
Yep.
I want to give an opportunity to answer some questions from the audience. So we've got Andrew Story. So he asks, how do you get your testosterone tested and what are normal levels? Also, if you ever start using artificial test, are you stuck on it for the rest of your life?
Mhm. Great questions. So the easiest way to get your testosterone test is going to be through a blood test, just simple blood draw. Now every lab's a little bit different. Most labs say like 280, 275 is that bottom number.
Mhm.
At 275, 280, you're still not in a good place. I like anything 400 to 500 and higher. That's my goal. And they tell you, well, as you age, it just naturally declines, and that's not true. I know at the guys event I showed you a couple where I have a 49-year-old that has a testosterone level of like 853.
Wow.
I have a 72-year-old that has a testosterone level of, I believe is it 636. So like it's very possible to keep those hormone levels high, especially in younger guys. 500 and above is what I'm shooting for. That's kind of my goal. And the higher the better. But I mean, they say your testosterone level drops through time. Realistically, it's because you're not taught how to take care of it. You're exposed to all these different toxins, more and more and more, just keep coming out every year.
Mhm.
So slowly, every day, every year, it just keeps chipping away at it. And so it's just learning how to avoid those toxins, learning how to take care of yourself, learning how to keep it high for yourself, and you can have good, healthy testosterone levels forever. Um, Answer the second question. If you start taking testosterone, are you stuck on it forever? No, you're not stuck on it forever. The longer you take it, the harder it is to get off of it. And after a certain amount of time, you might not be able to undo the damage that's done. So after a certain amount of time, it also depends on dose, also depends on quality, all those different things. You might be stuck on it, but it is not a life sentence. I help a lot of guys start to come off of that. Um, Essentially, what you do is if you're taking testosterone, right? That's what your testicles make testosterone. They kind of go on vacation. They're sitting on a beach somewhere because if you're giving your
Mhm.
body it artificially, they don't need to do their job anymore.
Mhm.
Because we all have basically, I call like we have a bucket, right? This is how much testosterone your body holds. If you're filling it up with outside sources, you don't have to make any. So you just have to be able to break that cycle again, help support your body to naturally make it. It'll honestly probably be a rough transition,
Mhm.
but kind of got yourself into that hole. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows trying to get dig yourself out of it, but it's
Absolutely.
definitely possible. It's definitely possible to get back to normal. It's just going to take some time.
So best case scenario would be more of a weaning process off of the artificial testosterone.
Depends. It depends what you want to do. Some people wean. If you want
Hmm.
to feel better during the process, you can wean yourself off of it. If you want to get to your goal quicker, cold turkey. It really kind of depends.
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of tell a lot of people. Like you got two options. This path is going to be a little easier, but it's going to take longer. This path is going to be quicker, going to be a little more roller coaster ride. So,
So
but
it's definitely based on the individual and how deep they are in the hole on that.
yes,
So
yep, yep.
awesome. Well, we'll move on to question number two. When is the best time of day for men to work out?
Yeah, great question. As men, your hormones cycle as well, just like a woman's hormone cycle. Ours is just more on a daily kind of rhythm. Again, assuming you are a healthy male and that rhythm is correct. Now, again, you can throw off that rhythm very easily, but your testosterone levels are going to be highest in the morning. Okay. So that's why you wake up with some morning wood. Okay. Testosterone levels are highest in the morning, typically in a healthy male. That's going to be your best time to go and work out. Your testosterone's high, your blood's flowing, you're driven, you're focused. You want to go and do those hard things. Not to say that you can't do them later in the morning, not to say that you can't do them in the afternoon, but ideal time would be in the morning time, sometime in there. Now, you want to be careful working out too late because, again, you can start to throw off that circadian rhythm as the day goes on. Your testosterone levels are starting to drop, hormones are shifting, other hormones are coming in, like that melatonin, cortisol is coming
Mm,
down. So, again, you can be more relaxed and go to bed. If you're doing a workout later at night, you can start to throw that off. Again, testosterone levels start to come back up, cortisol starts to come back up, and now you can start to run into sleep problems and different things like that. So, morning time is going to be the best.
there's nothing worse than that icky feeling you have whenever you're working out at 11:30, all jacked up on pre-workout, and you know that you're tired, like your body's tired, but you're wired.
Yep.
Oh, there's nothing worse than that. But so next question. How high can your testosterone get? I know you just answered this to some extent.
Mhm.
But I'm going to add to that. Is there a possibility of testosterone being too high?
Um, Naturally, no. Naturally, your body is never, my perspective, like your body never makes a mistake.
Mhm.
So naturally, your testosterone levels can't be too high. Now, you're taking testosterone, you're taking some of those different things, you can definitely have some abnormal levels and it can start to lead to different issues. You know, the common thing like roid rage kind of
Oh
thing,
yeah.
right? You get overly aggressive and all these different things. The testosterone has to go somewhere. So if you're taking that outside source, and again, if you have a bucket and you overflow it, it's got to go somewhere. Okay. So now it can start to overflow into your estrogens and things like that. That's why I feel like if you have ever dived into the realm of bodybuilding and stuff like that, so many of them, if they are taking testosterone, different things, they also have to take like an anti-estrogen because otherwise they start to get some different issues. They start to get some like poofy nipples and different things like that. That's the estrogen kind of overflowing. Now, what is your max? Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's max is going to be a little bit different. Again, everybody's going to have a little bit different size container. Um, I've seen some people push in 900, 1,000. I've never seen really 1,100, but on my scale, on my like lab sheet, it goes from 280 to 1,100. So
Wow.
I know you can get pushing up there, but like that's high. And it's hard to maintain that. It's hard to maintain those super high levels.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, especially in a world like today, like you can't control the air quality. I'm breathing in toxins right now as we speak. There's just no way to really get around some of those different things. But yeah, you can push up there. 900, 900 is a pretty good place to be able to sit. So
E-
naturally.
Excuse my ADHD, but um, with people that have a natural tendency to have a higher testosterone, say for example, they are in the 900s,
Mhm.
if they have a baseline that of a lower end, right? And their testosterone comes down to a baseline that is actually still higher than some other people,
Yep.
would their body respond differently? As in maybe they feel worse at 700 than they would at 900, whereas somebody who is has a baseline of 500, but their
Yep.
high end is 700, it's kind of a threshold.
Yeah.
aspect.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're definitely going to feel that drop.
Mhm.
Um, Now the person dropping from 900 to 700, it's probably going to feel different than somebody dropping from 500 to 300.
Mhm.
Because 700 realistically is still a pretty darn good number. So you're
Mhm.
not going to have as many underlying issues at that point. You start to drop down into like 300s, 200s. You can start to have a lot of other issues tagging along with that. So yeah, you're gonna feel that drop either way, but you're gonna have less, I guess, added on issues if you're already at that higher point. But
It's a little
oh
less
yeah, yep,
detrimental.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
gotcha. Well, awesome. So we'll jump on to the next one. By the way, that was John from Men in the Fray. Awesome dude. Had
oh
the
yeah,
awesome opportunity to meet him as well
yeah.
as you. So the next question is by Justin at Be a Man podcast. He says, "What are 3 to 5 ways you can boost test as you age? What supplements should you take? And if so, what should you look for in those supplements?" And then he's got an additional question: Is creatine still effective over 40? I don't know if I can
Yeah.
repeat that if I need to.
No, no, well, we'll see. It's funny. I had two people ask me about creatine today, and I haven't had anybody ask me about creatine in a long time. So,
Yeah.
I mean, creatine's effective. You can definitely take creatine. It's still going to be effective over 40. Your body, the physiology of your body hasn't changed just by the time that you age. It's just, again,
Hmm.
toxic buildup and different things like that. For me, I don't take a ton of creatine. I just don't, the cost effectiveness of it, the benefits I get from it aren't aren't for me. I'm not willing to pay the money kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, Most people take it before workouts and stuff like that to help. I do most of my workouts fasted. So like I'm just a little bit different. So
Hmm.
I just don't prioritize that, but it's not a wrong thing.
His next question was what are 3 to 5 ways you can
Yeah.
boost test as you age?
Yeah. Um, Cut out sugar. Okay. Cut out carbs, cut out sugar as much as possible. Not that you like can't ever have sugar again, but the lower your sugar content and carb content is, the better that's gonna be. If you can go keto, like you're gonna really feel it. Like that's gonna make a huge impact on you.
Mhm.
Fasting as well. A lot of different ways to do that. Now, technically, fasting is considered 24 hours. So like doing like quote unquote intermittent fasting, skipping breakfast, technically isn't fasting, but we're just getting detailed there. But doing some sort of fasting like that, so like we talked about earlier, smaller or less meals, bigger meals, not the bunch of small ones. So honestly, the less you can eat, but still get your calories and good food in those meals, the better. Um, and then past that, I know he asked about what supplements you can take to help with that too. So I'd say, yeah, the fasting, sugar, honestly, water consumption is going to
Mhm.
be a big one. And then again, changing that routine. When are you working out? When are you doing your hard things? When are you starting to calm down? That can really affect just that whole circadian rhythm and hormone rhythm. As far as supplements, um, couple different things. I can tell you what I take is might be different than some other people take. Organ meat is the most nutrient dense food on the planet. Okay.
Mhm.
The way I think about it is like there's a dead animal. What's the wolf going for first? The organs. That's the most
Mhm.
nutrient dense stuff. So for my like male support, I have something called a male glandular. It's going to have liver in it. It's going to have heart in it. It's going to have prostate in it. And it literally has testes in it. Okay. So it's giving you all the ingredients to help support that manhood, help support that growth, and is super nutrient dense. So that's one of the number one things that I take is just that's a supplement I have and I take. Um, and then past that, like I literally said earlier, I had Braunschweiger for dinner. So I literally had liverwurst and liver for dinner. So very, very good for you, very nutrient dense. Past that, there's a couple different things. One, something called tribulus, really good for hormonal health, also really good for blood flow and different things like that. So that's another good one that you can take. Um, Testosterone levels. I mean, past that, it's figuring out what's stealing from it. There's a couple ways that you can help support those things, but I think the bigger question always, what's stealing from it? And so things like there's something called Golden Seal. Golden Seal is another supplement, helps with insulin regulation, helps with sugar levels and things like that. So that can help with that too. You just want to be careful with that one. You can't take it super long term. But biggest thing is just like you got to figure out what are those imbalances, what are those different things that you can start, because realistically any supplement can start to help. If it starts to help with balance, helps start to regulate things better, it can positively influence those hormones. Directly though, you're going with some of those male glandular or those organ meats, you're going with tribulus, you're going with some of those things. Cordyceps mushrooms, that's another one. Cordyceps mushrooms are really good for testosterone as well.
Awesome. Awesome. That's really good stuff. And I'm going to add just a bonus to the 3 to 5 is do not skip leg day. Your legs are your largest mass of muscle. Yes. And if you work your largest mass of muscle, most bodybuilders will say, if you want to grow arms, do legs, right? And it's because of that testosterone benefit.
Yeah. I'll have to add on there too, on a little side note. One of the biggest things that influenced my health and even my testosterone levels was my protein powder that I chose, right? Everybody, okay, let's get some whey protein, right? I'm going to get big and strong and help build my muscles. And you're not wrong. You're not wrong, but I haven't touched whey protein powder in 7-8 years, something like that. Whey spikes your insulin levels really, really high. Okay. Insulin is a growth hormone, and it also promotes putting sugar into your muscles, but it also, again, we talked about the meals, right? Reducing those meals. If you do a lot of whey protein shakes, okay, you're getting that much closer to being diabetic. Again, high insulin spikes. Again, that pathway from testosterone to estradiol is stimulated by insulin. So yes, you're helping with some of putting that sugar back into the muscle post-workout, but you're influencing the rest of your body in several different ways. I go with bone broth protein. So that's literally what I'm drinking is a collagen bone broth protein shake. My opinion, so much better for you. So you're still getting those nutrients, you're still getting those different things, but skip the whey.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea to get some good chicken liver collagen source.
Oh, so much better. So much better.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yep. And last but not least, and this might be my favorite question, and then we'll cap this off. It's been an awesome podcast so far, but why, and this is by my friend Logan Hanks. He has a podcast called Talk Dirt Podcast. Okay. He's a farmer. And he says, why do some chicks like dad bods? So this might be more psychological, but I had to throw it in there.
Oh, man. Again, it can depend on the guy, right? It can be pheromones, can be different things like that. Now, not everybody's perfect body type is just going to be shredded 6-pack kind of thing. I think it can also go back to the fact of like birth control. So nearly 67% of females are on birth control. That can affect the type of guy they're also attracted to.
Interesting.
In that, right? And so, because again, it goes back to where are their hormones at? If they're a normal cycling female, most females are going to be actively searching for a male partner during the phase right before basically ovulation. So, right, their cycle is trying to get them pregnant. Essentially, that's what their hormones are telling them because their body's ready for it. So they're going to look for the more aggressive, more attractive, pheromone-heavy male. If they're on birth control and things like that, now they're looking for a more soft, gentle, nurturing, caring kind of male. And so it's going to be somebody completely different. And so now that can be a big part of it, but that doesn't mean that just because, okay, you have a little bit extra on you, that doesn't mean that you can't be the leader. You can't be a little more aggressive. The thing is everybody's in a different point in their journey. So maybe you started a little bigger and now you're getting healthier. You still are holding on to a little bit of extra weight, but that doesn't mean that you're a mile ahead of where you were before. And you're showing that aggression and you're showing that drive and you're showing those different things. And those ladies can be attracted to that. So everybody's got a little bit of different attraction, but a lot of it comes down to the hormones and pheromones and those different things. So
That's so good, man. So good. And that actually kind of helps explain something to me as well. I did some research because my diet was dialed in whenever me and my wife had our first child. But I
yeah,
gained 30 pounds. I was exercising correctly. I was actually making progress prior to her getting pregnant. And my prolactin, which is what actually causes the dad bod process, apparently,
hmm hmm
increased and my testosterone decreased because I'm assuming because of her pheromones of being pregnant. And
yep,
then it's almost like God created uh, the man to be able to settle down a little bit because you found your
yep,
mate and
yep,
now you need to be there for them. You need to be able to stay up at night and maybe have a little bit extra stored up energy to have with the
yep,
crying baby all night long. So it just something like that. Like if maybe you and your wife are having your first child and you gain 30 pounds and you aren't eating the way that she's eating, maybe it's natural and
yep.
maybe it's not necessarily anything negative about what's going on in your life. It's just that your
Mhm.
body is doing what your body's supposed to do. Now,
100%.
once you realize though that this isn't the way you want to feel, and this isn't the way you want to look, get back on the horse, take control of your health again, get those hormones back balanced out in check. And,
Yep.
because there are still other needs. You still need to be, a protector of your household and a leader and a
Yep.
driven business owner and all this other stuff that you could lose if you primarily stay on that nurturing estrogen side of things.
Yep.
So,
100%.
with that being said, man, I have absolutely, this may be my favorite podcast. Like I said, I have a wealth of curiosity and you have a
Yeah.
wealth of knowledge, and I would love to have another podcast with you at some point in the future. But um, yeah, all of y'all go and follow Dr. Shane on all of his platforms. Look into the Wellness Way. They have their own Instagram and website and all of that as well, right?
Yep. Yep.
Do they have a podcast as well? I thought I might have seen something like that. Or is that
They just started a podcast. So
okay?
it's called the I Disagree podcast. Just disagreeing with a lot of the stuff that's been, especially the last couple of years, that's been kind of going on, disagreeing with like a lot of the medical system and just the approach to a lot of those different things. But yeah, the Wellness Way just started a podcast, trying to figure out a time. I'm going to be on there sometime soon. So trying to
Mhm.
figure out a time that I can make it over to Green Bay and do that. But no, it was a pleasure. I really enjoyed this. I mean, we went an hour over. So, but I'm having fun. So no worries there. But yeah, let's definitely do it again. I'd be honored to jump back on here, dive into some more things, maybe some EMFs and different things. But yeah,
Sounds
it's a
great, man.
pleasure.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, make sure that you are following us on all platforms. Go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, all of that awesome stuff. Educate yourself, take your health into your own hands, and make sure that you're able to live a healthy, happy life that God created you to have. Respect your body the way that God created it. With that being said, God bless. Love y'all. Have a great day.